Welcome to 30 and Nerdy. My name is David, and I am all alone this week as Brady and AJ are both sick. So we're just going to do a short little podcast here. Hopefully you will enjoy my content. A couple of things I wanted to jump into right now live is The Punisher, and that is an amazing Netflix series right now. I've only gotten a couple episodes in, but so far I like it. I like some of the imagery. I enjoy that it's an origin story, but it doesn't do the normal thing where it has just back episodes and then gets you back to present. It puts you in the present right now and then just kind of does some flashbacks, and I really enjoy how they just sprinkle in the lore and the origin story without shoving it in your face for 2 or 3 episodes before you get to the good meaty stuff. And so I would say that's an excellent thing to pick up and binge right now, especially if you've gotten through Stranger Things 2 and you're looking for something to watch. Also on Netflix that just came out is Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, and that is an amazing documentary on Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey's portrayal of Andy Kaufman. And I remember watching Man on the Moon with AJ a long time ago, and it was an eye-opening and an amazing experience, just because when you're watching it, and having seen Andy Kaufman, I didn't grow up in the exact era of when he was on Saturday Night Live, but I do remember watching those things and seeing Taxi and the Jerry Lawler and David Letterman interviews, and just such an interesting and strange person, and not really knowing what was real and what wasn't, and having people around him not knowing or understanding what was real and what wasn't, and seeing him do that bit where he just mimed the Mighty Mouse song was just amazing. And Jim Carrey did his own audition tape, and he just basically did what Andy Kaufman had done, since he was going for the part of Andy Kaufman, and did the same routines. And I just remember watching Jim Carrey, who looks almost exactly like Andy Kaufman, and just watching this documentary brought me back to the times of watching Man on the Moon and realizing just how close he was to the actual authentic, real Andy Kaufman, and how he method acted so much that he didn't really know where Andy started and Jim Carrey stopped. And there were times in the documentary when you see some of Andy Kaufman's family and they're tearing up because he's acting exactly like Andy Kaufman. You have Paul Giamatti and Danny DeVito is basically saying that Jim Carrey is acting exactly like what Andy Kaufman did on set, and that it just is an amazing portrayal of Andy Kaufman. And this documentary was done alongside the movie and sat in Jim Carrey's office for 20 years, unbeknownst to us. And it's just an amazing look at both Jim Carrey and how he portrayed Andy Kaufman, and just his journey through that whole entire process of basically living, eating, breathing, being Andy Kaufman and all his different characters, both actual characters and characteristics. So if you have a chance to check that out, I would say those are 2 amazing things that you can watch right now. And also out right now, we're looking at a few games. We have Call of Duty World War II. I have picked it up. Of course, I said I wasn't going to, but I did. So it is a fun game. It is, I think, a little hard going back from the action run and gun, jump and gun of Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare, and Black Ops 3. And so it's a little bit slower, a little bit hard to get used to in the beginning. And also there were a few games where I was doing really well, and so that kind of made me think that it was not a good game, because if I'm doing great, then it can't be that amazing because I haven't played this type of game in years. It is a lot of fun. Takes a little getting used to. I'm not sure if they have the centralized hub working the way it's supposed to right now, because as I have played, I have not seen any real human beings. So I'm not sure if it's just my NAT settings or or if it's not working as it's intended as of yet, but it still is pretty fun. Zombies is different than your previous iterations. They're more like a World at War than your Black Ops zombies, but still a lot of fun. And we're getting LA Noire remastered coming out for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Nobody cares about the Switch. Some people do, I'm sure, but Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a big one that's coming out this month. And with Black Friday and all that kind of fun stuff coming up, those will be some good things to pick up. But this episode, I really wanted to just talk a little bit on why I believe that Blizzard is probably one of the best companies, has a broad range of games for most anybody to pick up and enjoy, and then ending with why you should play World of Warcraft. So we'll just jump in and just hit a few of the games that you could be playing. Of course, World of Warcraft, already mentioned that. Overwatch for your first-person shooter, Call of Duty-ish type gameplay, more fast-paced. You have your Diablo 3, if you enjoy your grinding for gear and playing the same levels over and over and over again. Then you have Hearthstone, so if you're a Magic the Gathering player, it comes second nature to play this. It doesn't not very hard to pick up. Hard to master, but not hard to pick up and play and enjoy. Heroes of the Storm, so if you enjoy Dota, then Heroes of the Storm is a perfect thing for you, especially if you enjoy the lore and the characters from the Blizzard universe. Then you can enjoy those and play those. If you enjoy your RTSs, you have your StarCraft 2, StarCraft, and Warcraft 3, Warcraft 2, and all those, but mainly Warcraft 3 is probably the most polished and best versions of the RTS of that era. And then, of course, you have your Diablo 2, but I think Diablo 3 has done an amazing job and is better in most ways than Diablo 2. Though still needs some tinkering to make it amazing. So there are some of the games. They also published Destiny 2, so there's another one that you can pick up and play that Blizzard has their hands in the cookie jar for. And I believe that all of these games are what makes Blizzard. They take the time to make amazing games. They don't put out a crap product, and they take all the time that it needs. So they don't have a deadline, or if there is a deadline, then what they do is they try and meet it. But if it's not going to be the game that they want, it's not going to come out. It's going to get pushed back. Of course, some developers do that still, but a lot, most notably whenever Tony Hawk 5, I think it was, but a Tony Hawk game came out and it was unplayable, and then they came out with a patch that was, I believe, larger than what was on the disc, and still was unplayable. But when you have to do a day one patch that is the size of the actual game on the disc, you know that you had a product that should not have gone out the door. And I cannot think of a Blizzard game that has done that. And that's why I believe that Blizzard is one of the better companies. And so moving from there and all those games, just moving into some of the stuff from BlizzCon, where we have the new World of Warcraft expansion, its 7th iteration, and it's Battle for Azeroth. And there are going to be some fun and new things to it, and this will kind of segue into why we should, or why you should, play World of Warcraft. And the thing that I liked from just reading some of the stuff, whether from Polygon or from Blizzard, and getting some of the press releases from the BlizzCon, is that I enjoyed that it's going back to its original roots, since they weren't going to just keep on adding more and more and more large bosses. We kind of hit the top of the top with Sargeras, and now we're going back to that it's a conflict between the Horde and Alliance, and I really enjoy that, and I like that a lot. I enjoy that they're going to be trying to do some new stuff with the islands system, and having where it is just a 3-person group that goes through. You don't need to have a tank and a healer. You can make it through with anything as long as you're a player who is able to pay attention to his surroundings and knows what he's doing. The one thing I'm not looking forward to is, once again, grinding up to 120. The level grind was always the hardest thing to try and push yourself through. The one thing I am sad about is that the Undercity has been, or will be, taken over by the Alliance, or reclaimed, I guess. And that is because I love the Undercity. That was one of my favorite cities. While everybody else congregated in Orgrimmar, I always loved being back in the Undercity. I liked the aesthetics of it. I enjoyed the throne room where you could hear whispering if you had your sound turned up and you just listened. I enjoyed just the setup of the city. I understood it. Orgrimmar, I always got lost, and they keep on adding different things and moving people around. Undercity, I think, kind of roughly stayed the same. Besides having, Sylvanas moving and somebody else taking your place, just like Thrall, and having somebody else take his place when he went off into Nagrand and all that jazz. But I do believe that it will be a nice breath of fresh air, similar probably to either the Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King, which I think Wrath of the Lich King was a great expansion. A lot of people didn't care for it. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved going through the Icecrown Citadel, and all of the bosses that were in it were a lot of varied different things, and there's just a lot of fun to go through, and also to get the lore as you went along with it. And I think that's why the first original WoW Classic, or Vanilla WoW, had so much lore packed into it, and just new places, and it was just someplace fun and interesting to be. But let's move just from the expansion pack and get to what I think is more interesting. You may or may not agree. There is, on Eurogamer, they sat down with executive producer J. Allen Brack and were able to just ask a few questions about the Vanilla WoW and how that's going to work. Not a lot of information, but some notable and fun stuff. Like they asked, when is WoW Classic going to go live? They said they don't know yet, just like every Blizzard game. They are not really sure how it's going to work. They're looking at it both from a technical aspect as well as a patch and gameplay aspect, because the technology that they had back when Vanilla WoW first came onto the scene no longer exists. And so now to try and get Vanilla WoW to work on what they currently have is going to take a lot of time and effort. And what they had also said is that there's going to be 2 different teams now working on it, so that way content for Classic WoW is not going to hinder Battle of Azeroth's endgame content, so that way they're not dividing their attentions, and that way they can give us a great product on both sides of it. I do believe, because they've said several times in this interview that, or asking when is this going to come out and how long do you think it is going to be, months, is going to be years. I'm going to put my money more on a year to 2 years out probably, which makes me sad, but also I want a good product. I want an enjoyable experience. And some of the interesting things that I know that AJ and I talked about was that we were kind of hoping for a little melding of the new with the old, but what it looks like we're going to get is just, you wanted the Vanilla WoW, so that's what you're going to get. And I'm kind of okay with that. I still wish that they would do a hybrid where we get some of this good stuff that has the bugs that they kind of worked out of the system in later expansion packs. But it looks like where you would buff a party member and have to sit down and drink to gain your mana back and buff another party member. I don't remember it being all that arduous, but rose-tinted glasses and hindsight is always 20/20. And memories and nostalgia, looking back at something and trying to remember the bad with the good, and how Skullomance could kick your butt if you had a crappy group instead of just steamrolling it. Also, they're going to be taking away Raid Finder and Group Finder and stuff like that. You're getting basically bare bones WoW is what it looks like. That they want you to have the 1 to 60 experience. So it sounds like I will not be getting my flying mount in Azeroth, which I guess is okay. I just might have to roll a mage so I can go wherever I want to, whenever I want to. And it looks like they're trying to decide which patch they're going to be looking at, and we may or may not get the very latest patch before the Burning Crusade dropped. We may get one kind of somewhere in the middle. We're not really sure. They're not really sure. They have a build right now, and they are working on it, but it is still in the very early initial stages. of development, and so that is going to be a long process, I believe. It's not going to happen anytime soon, which is what we'd want. But the other thing they did talk about is pricing, and they have not answered that question either. So you're not really sure if you're going to have to pay a one-time fee like to buy WoW Classic, or if you will get it if you are already paying a subscription fee. So that's kind of all up in the air. I'm hoping that it's just that you pay the subscription fee just like normal, and you could jump to the regular game if you wanted to, or the legacy version, just whichever one you wanted, just like if you created several characters on different servers and not having to pay for more until you reach the maximum, then you'd have to buy a different account. But I'm technically okay if I had to buy another version of it, because I love Blizzard and they will always get my money. But it's still up in the air, and we're just not really sure how that's going to work out or what it's going to be. They are hiring for the Vanilla Classic side, and so that is nice to see that they are splitting their time, and that they are delegating enough people to each side to give us a polished product on Battle of Azeroth and WoW Legacy. And that does bring me up to how many servers are they going to have. That's also up in the air. I would say that since they are going to be taking out the Raid Finder and the Battle Group and all that kind of stuff that we've all enjoyed for years now, that I would say getting to a high population server and then spending your time in the main cities is going to be your best bet for getting gear, for getting groups. They really want it to be where the community builds itself once again from the ground up, and that you have this vested interest in it and that you want it to grow. And because I think that is one of the things with all the new stuff that is great, the sense of community, the guild, doesn't really seem to matter that much. Whereas in Vanilla WoW, I was talking to my guild mates in the raid consortium that we were in, Raid Awesome, and I had friends in other guilds, and we would do stuff together because we knew each other from signing up on these forums and doing stuff. So I look forward to kind of getting that back, and to be able to just have that kind of sense of community. So now we get to the main part of why I think you should play World of Warcraft, and there are several different things. There's a breadth of content, 13 plus years, because I think it came out in 2004, and had Vanilla WoW for 2 or 3 years, I believe. So you have that 13 years, 6 expansions so far, 7 coming soon. So you have 13 years of content to play through, a wealth of lore, great story, several different ways to play. You can play as either PvP, so player versus player versus environment, if you enjoy just getting together with a bunch of people and taking down different scenarios, different bosses. And also there's the RP aspect, which I didn't think I would actually like, but moving from a PvP server where you were looking over your shoulder all the time to a RP server and playing with friends, still a little weird, because the first time that I jumped into, I think it was Death Knell, this is the starting zone of the undead, and having somebody come up to me in white chat. So that's just the chat where you can only see within a certain radius of your avatar, and having this player come up and talk to you and want you to help him with a quest that wasn't even an actual quest, it just was something he wanted you to do to help him out because he was RPing. And so that there's a different aspect of that, of a different style of community, but a community nonetheless, because there's tons of player-driven content that isn't either an actual quest or an actual lore storyline. But I would say those are some of my favorite reasons. It is a great investment for gaming money, because I mean, instead of plunking down potential $60 to play a game for 40 hours, you can pay, at the most $15 or $12 a month if you pay at a lump sum monthly rate. But you are able to just pay that $12 a month and not have to worry about thinking about all the new stuff, because you already have a game that has years of content for you to get through and a great community. And I believe this is just one of the best games out there right now, just because it gives you so much to do. whether it's playing the auction house or endgame content or leveling or RPing, PvPing. Really kind of just gives you a ton of content and unlimited access to a great world with a wonderful story and convoluted lore. But you're going to kind of get that when you get a ton of people trying to make a product as large and immense as this. But this has been a very, very short 30 and Nerdy. Hopefully it has not been too terrible and put you to sleep. If it did, then you're welcome. I have been David. You have a wonderful day and happy Thanksgiving.